All right, welcome everybody to Pitch Perfect 2025. This is the kickoff of Star Peninsula for the year. So this is Pitch Perfect 1. 2 weeks from night tonight will be micro pitch number 1, and it's sold out. So that's great. Great for those that already have been approved and secured your spot. We are looking for two alternates. So if you're interested in being an alternate, let us know. We will take the first two people that respond to be an alternate. So the benefit of being an alternate quickly is you do not have to have the deposit for the $50. You'll just show up the night of the micro pitch, and then um, if somebody has to cancel or no shows, then you just slide into that spot. Um, so you may get to pitch, you may not get to pitch, but if you're interested to do that, let us know. And then we will open up micro pitch number 2 slots to everybody as soon as we conclude with micro pitch number 1. The reason we don't have multiple micro pitch opens at the same time is because then people are like, oh, they get cold feet. They don't want to do micro pitch 1. They would rather wait until May, and then it just scheduling wise, it gets super complex. So we only have one open at a time. So tonight, Gary and I will be going over Pitch Perfect. We're going to teach you everything that you need to know about your pitch. This comes as a result of when we first started Star Peninsula about 13 years ago. People got up and pitched, and they really didn't know what they were doing. And the pitch quality was not very good. So we decided that we were going to teach people how to pitch. My name is Tim Ryan. I do everything from the business side. And I teach you from that aspect. I have worked with thousands of founders over the course of the last 14, 15 years. Also transitioned into the angel investor role, so I know what it's like from a starting an incubator to writing a check, and I guess more importantly, seeing a check go to zero. So I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm not looking for is I'm not looking for investments to go to zero. So I can provide that, and Gary will provide expertise on the performance side. And you may wonder, what does that mean? And I will let Gary introduce himself and explain to you what that means. Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I work with Tim. We've been doing this for a long time. And part of what Tim just described as things not being very good would be that people looked really nervous. They were not well prepared. They didn't know how to prepare. Many people would it seemed that they would just put their slide deck together and run it through their head a little bit, but never actually practice it. And then they would be scared to death the day of the pitch and never heard their voices say those words, none of that. So we decided that it might be better to do it a different way. And so my history and background is that I've had a communication consulting business for about 26 years. And I just work with people on how they can best tell their stories so that their body language and their vocal inflection and the words they choose to use and the way that they describe it, that what they do, all that kind of stuff makes such a huge difference in the way that it's perceived by, in this case, the judges and even people that are, yeah. One thing we need to remember is that the general public is invited to watch these pitches. And while the judges may not select your pitch as one of the top three, somebody in the room might say, who's just watching, they might go, wow, I need to talk to that Tim Ryan guy because he's got the greatest idea about a better mousetrap. But Tim didn't win one of the three spots. So you just never know. And so I like to help people be prepared for whoever might be listening and watching and seeing how you handle yourself. So that's my piece of the business. And then it works together with Tim because he's the guru on how to get people to give you money for your idea and how to make it viable and that kind of stuff. And I'm just a guy that makes sure that you're telling your story the right way. So it works really well together. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you,
Awesome.
Gary.
Yep.
And We are recording this. We will be sure to send you a copy of this recording, and we'll also post it to our YouTube channel as well so that you can refer back to it later. Um, that said, we will dig into this. I will share my screen and we'll get going. All right. Does that look good?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So for the agenda tonight, we will talk about the elements of the pitch, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask any questions. And for those that are brave enough, which all of you are, give you a chance to practice your pitch, and we'll give you some feedback.
And if you're
So,
not brave enough, I have this magic. I don't know what it is, but I can get people who are nervous to give it a try. So you may succumb to that. And that's one of my magic powers. So I'm looking forward to having to tempt some of you.
and with that, some of you, we realize that some of you have not ever pitched before. Um, and that is perfectly okay. We love to see that. So if for the purpose of this, as we go through the elements of the pitch, if you just have a blank piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, just start jotting down notes. And then really when we're done with this, it's just reading those notes out aloud and you through the notes of what we describe, what you need to do, you have the basic outline of what your pitch is. And then just by reading that out loud, it gives you a great sense of what 3 minutes is. Because so this is a 3 minute pitch. And then for the purpose of Star Peninsula, it's a 2 minute question and answer period. But like one of the things that Gary and I can tell right off the bat is like if someone has not practiced and we yeah, and you know that we know that you have 3 minutes and you haven't even talked and described about the problem yet, and you've already talked for like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, we know where this is going. And so
If I could say, if you are nervous and inexperienced about pitching, 3 minutes seems like an eternity. And if you are really skilled, 3 minutes seems like it's not enough time. If you're really prepared, you'll be like, oh wow, that was over really fast.
and
And
we'll ask you,
I wish I had 10 more minutes. And
right?
if you're not experienced, you're plugging through and you're only partway through and you're thinking, gosh, this is the longest 3 minutes ever. Yeah, it is. It is.
And a lot of times we'll ask people, how long do you think, and for this practice session, we'll ask people, how long do you think you went? And like some people, I don't even know what the record is, but some people have like they've gone on for like 6 or 7 minutes, and we just let
Oh
them
yeah.
go because I mean this is really it's a great learning opportunity. And like the thing is like tonight we're all in a level playing field. There's no judgment. Everybody, when you enter this meeting, egos, judgment, all that stuff is left. It's on the outside. We're all amongst equals here. We're all yeah, so
Well,
embrace this.
my cat is listening. So he usually has feedback. And I bet your dog is listening, Tim.
Well, yeah, I did hear that, but that said, let's jump in and talk about what the elements of the pitch is are. And so, like I said, 3 minutes. We're going to put that on the clock. For the purpose of Star Peninsula, you will see Gary and I. We will co-MC the event. I will be the timer. Gary will introduce you. The way that it works is as soon as you start talking, I will start the timer. And because you are here and you're listening, I don't have to worry about cutting you off, and Gary doesn't have to worry about telling you to stop either because you're going to nail that 3 minute time limit. But a lot of when we started this, people didn't really understand what how to grasp 3 minutes and what that really is. So, like, let's just take a look at how we break things down. And I'm going to start by saying, like, this is not rocket science in the sense of everything needs to be broken down to the exact same second here. We can borrow from one area and take away from another and add to another. We just this is just to give you some basic guidelines on how to break this down. So we always ask, start with an attention getter, 10 seconds. And we'll get into what this looks like in more detail. But it could be a quote, it could be a statistic, it could be just anything other than your name, because everyone is going to start with your name. And you can see that my name is Tim Ryan. You see it right on the Zoom screen. So don't waste your time on talking about who you are and what your name is. You can already see it. Those participating will have a virtual background with your name over your shoulder. And as Gary likes to say, you haven't given them a reason to want to know your name yet. So start with something that's going to capture the audience's attention. 10 seconds. Then we're going to dig into the problem or the opportunity. 50 seconds to talk about this. And this is where I say if there's one area that people are going to go long, it's the problem, because it's really easy to be confident on talking about the problem. I mean, that's all subjective. And another thing that people will do when they talk about the problem is that they will want to be, they will want to add a use case for every single person. If yeah, this group has this problem and that group has this problem, and they want to be all things to all people, and like that just eats away time. So 50 seconds there. Then we're going to
What
talk
do they
about
say?
this.
What do they? I think they say if you try to be everything to everybody, you'll be nothing to anybody.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and we'll talk about this, but in the event that I skip over, pick your strongest segment, and that's the one that you stick to. Don't hedge bets on trying to be all things to all people. Pick the strongest segment, and that is the one you're going to go after. Then we're going to talk about the solution. 50 seconds to talk about that. And again, we're going to break all this stuff down. And then your name. Now you have people are picking up what you're putting down. They have a reason to want to care. Talk about your name, or talk about who your name of your company, a one-liner. I'm Tim Ryan. I'm the executive director from Innovate Hampton Roads, where we celebrate entrepreneurship and innovation across Hampton Roads. Just how are they going to remember you? Whether if you realize it or not, you are going to be remembered one way or another. Give them the way that you want to be remembered, as opposed to the opposite, because that's just the nature of the beast. Target market, 50 seconds there. Who are you selling to? Who are you going to try to target? And then you have 10 seconds for your close. And what that close, that could be, again, your one-liner. Thank you. My name is Tim Ryan, and we want to help everyone celebrate entrepreneurship and innovation in Hampton Roads, whatever the case is. But now you can see like the attention getter, perhaps your name, the closing. Those are some areas where we can steal a couple seconds from if you really, really need to go long in another area. But that is your 3 minutes. And for the purpose of this micro pitch, the judge's rubric has 4 categories in it: the problem, the solution, the market, and your overall pitch performance. So those are the 4 things. There are no secrets. This is the building block for you all to build upon, and we're here to set you all up for success. Anything you want to add before we jump ahead, Gary?
I'm eager to see what the slides look like.
All right. Well, let's do it.
I'm kidding. I already know what they look like, but
Um, yeah. Uh, the secret sauce. This is just a little bonus slide for everybody. And ultimately, as you move forward, we want you to focus on getting 3 things, and that's going to be your product, a team, and we realize you may be a single founder at this point, but you need to start thinking about what do you need to help you execute, and then your customers. So if you have a product, then you're delighting customers. Your customers are then generating revenue so that you can then build your team, improve your product to get more customers. When you have all 3 of those things, you have growth. If you do not, you just have an idea. And ideas are worth nothing. Validated ideas is worth everything. So that is just I share that with you early on before we jump into this, and that's because a lot of times you all will be onto something really, really good, and the judges will get really, really excited, and they will want to ask questions that like about those things, about the product, the team, and the customers. And we just that is what you are that's what you're working towards. because without those things, you don't have anything at all. So that's the secret sauce. Now we're going to talk about how you get into that and the problem. So things to consider when you have that 50 seconds that we're talking about the problem. Again, do not go long. This is the area that we know right away that you start going long, you're not going to be able to get to your market. You may not be able to get to your solution. And then if you don't get to those things, guess what? You're docked points on those two categories, and then by default, you're docked on the overall pitch performance because you weren't able to get through all through three things that were on the rubric. So don't go long. And like when I talked about that blank piece of paper, right now, just the problem that I'm trying to solve is, and just write a couple sentences. It's really that is no kidding where you need to start, and you don't have to go in deep technical detail. Your mom needs to understand it. Your children need to be able to understand it. The people that are highly technical in nature, they're the ones that tend to go way too deep and nobody understands what they're talking about. So very high level. What is the problem that I'm trying to solve is. And what we're going to do here and what we're going to talk about is we're going to put this around a story because people are visual learners. So that there's the whole cliche, numbers tell, stories sell. And so we are going to, you want to think about somebody has this problem. Now I'm going to paint this in a picture. Imagine Gary. I want to introduce you to Gary. Gary has this particular problem. And then when you talk about this from a story standpoint, the people that are listening to you are now visualizing themselves as Gary experiencing this problem. And we're going to take them through that entire customer journey on how we solve that problem. And guess what? Gary's not alone. There's a whole market that people just like Gary that we're going to go after. And then that's the journey that we go down. So that
Except in
is
that example, I am rather unique. So
yeah. All right. So again, we're telling a story. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but if the thing is that that's the performance aspect, and that's where people are going to remember. With that, how big is the problem? So we need to make sure that we're solving a problem that is big enough
I think
for.
it's important to emphasize here too that if you put yourself in a position of a judge, and the judge has this rubric, and part of the rubric is what's the problem, and if they get distracted because they can't figure out the problem, when you go to your solution, they will continue being stuck on what's the problem. And now they're stuck for 2 minutes and can't get past the fact that they're trying to figure out the problem. And one thing that Tim and I have seen in the past 10 plus years is that many people come with a solution looking for a problem. And uh, it's a great solution, but the problem that you're solving isn't really a problem. And so why have the solution then? So this is really an important first step. What is the problem? And really, I think if we're saying you can have 50 seconds, if I were coaching you, I'd train you to make it 40 seconds. And then once you got it down to 40 seconds, I'd say make it 30 seconds. Tell me the problem in 30 seconds. And so you might want to challenge yourself to that a little bit later on. But for right now, you get 50 seconds, which is really a lot of time. If you can't get it down to less than that, then the story's not, the problem isn't being identified well enough.
Yeah, and the reason for the how big is the problem is that you're all here, you're going to be pitching to people, and it's just it you want it to be big enough. Like over the weekend, I heard about somebody, an acquaintance, and it came up what their profession was, and they were self-employed, and they were a violin repair person. And I was just thinking to myself, wow,
They call that a
that's
luthier. That's a
that is
luthier.
that is not a huge that's not to me that is not a venture scale business. I don't know what the market size is of whatever fancy word Gary just said. But
Well, where I live, it's a big deal because here I'm in bluegrass country, but in other parts of the world, it's probably not as big a deal.
yeah. So
Yeah.
how big is that problem? And now what we're doing now is we're looking at a dollar amount or a number of people. You have out of 330 people that live in the United States, you know, 100 million suffer from this. But that could be the quote that you open up with from the attention getter, and it also starts to demonstrate you know the market. So that's what we're thinking about here. Now we're going to go over to the solution. You got that somewhat dialed in. We got the story crafted. We're framing everything the way that it needs to go. And now we're going to talk about the idea and what the innovation behind that idea is. So some things to consider here is your audience does not know you. You're in this. You're probably like been in it for a really, really long time. Don't assume that they know anything. And a lot of times the judges will get hung up in terms of they're trying to figure it out what it is that you're trying to do. And like once they have a question, they stop listening to what you have to say. So just keep in mind that the audience doesn't know who you are. And you've got to, when you talk about the solution, you've got to talk about it from the ground up. And again, is the problem big enough? If you haven't picked up on that foot stomp, we've mentioned it twice now. That is a part of the rubric, when it comes about the problem and solution. Is the problem big
Kit,
enough?
where is she?
Yeah.
In the
Uh,
backyard?
how are
Go get your
you?
stuff. Let's go. Bring in your stuff at least.
Someone needs to mute themselves, please. How are you different or better than your competition? So to drill down on that a little bit further, we want to talk about how you are better. We don't want to talk about how they are worse. We don't want you to really focus on, hey, we're better than Google. Google sucks. They don't do this. They don't do that and the other thing. It'd be like, hey, we're able to do things. You can say that we're able to do things better, cheaper, faster without saying anything about anybody else. Um, So how are you different? How are you better? How are you innovative? What makes your solution better? And specifically 10x better. And the thing to keep in mind here is that if you want to change someone's behavior, your solution needs to be 10 times better than what the current solution is. If it's not, then they're just going to default to whatever it is, how they normally did it before. So if you look at Uber was 10 times better than a taxi cab because you could just get an Uber from your phone, tap your phone, it's there within minutes. You don't have to call, you don't have to wait, you don't have to pay. That's all done seamlessly. You can see where your Uber is on your phone. You can pre-schedule, you can leave a tip. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just all there. It's 10 times better. So it was very easy to break the status quo. That is what we're looking at here. That is so that you need to be thinking about in terms of how you differentiate yourself. All right. Next thing up is the team. Team was one of the three things in that flywheel. So things to consider with the team. This is all about how you're going to execute, and you've got to be able to execute. Again, if you're not able to execute, you just have an idea. And as we said in the beginning, ideas are not worth anything. So showcase your strengths. What makes you so special? Is it, hey, I am a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I am a real estate agent, I am whatever the case might be, that I know this better than anyone else. I am an expert in this field. The combined years of experience with my team is 150 years of experience. Whatever the case is, showcase what those strengths are, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to demonstrate why you are the one to solve this problem. So if you know the problem, you've got the solution, and you've got the team and the experience to do this, you're really, really well positioned to be the one to solve that problem. So one thing that people will overlook is that they will wear being a previous founder of a failed startup or a failed business as shameful. And I view that, and many people view that as the exact opposite, because the lessons that you learned during that first failed startup is invaluable. I mean, you only can learn that stuff by doing, and you won't make those same mistakes again. So, if you're a serial founder, or this is my second go, the first one didn't go so well, that all adds credibility. When you're talking about yourself and your team, you're either adding or take away from credibility. You want to add credibility as much as you can. That is a way to add credibility. Patents, certificates, all, yeah, this is your time. So many people want to be modest and they don't want to talk about themselves in a positive way and talk about how good they are. This is your time. And if you're missing things, this is when you have to do some soul searching in terms of like, hey, I'm a single founder right now, but I'm looking for a co-founder because I know I'm going to have to round out some things on this team so that we can make it as strong as possible. So that we'll get into that here in a couple slides, but that is leveraging vulnerability as a strength and not a weakness. Anything you want to add to team, Gary?
No, I think we're
Okay.
good.
All right. Now we're going to get into the marketability aspect of this, and some things to consider there is you have to identify who your customers are, and you need to know this really, really well. Any successful founder, any successful startup, any successful small business, they know their customers better than the customers know themselves. And you need to demonstrate your understanding of the market. So, like, if you think about it from if you want someone to come to repair your car or repair your home, say you need your deck repaired, a drywaller may not be the person. They may be decent in some home repair, but you want to make sure that they understand the market of deck building and that they can just rip off the boards, they can leave the footers in, they can do, they understand the problem. Oh yeah, I do. We do this all day, every day. I can do this in my sleep. This is I guarantee you once we pull this board, this is what we're going to see. You're building confidence. That is you want to show that same confidence that you expect to get someone when you're talking to someone. So demonstrating the understanding of the market. Another thing um, is when you're talking about like the size, number of people, or the number of um, the dollar amount. Don't just go to ChatGPT or Google or Gemini and say, what's the size of the housing market in the United States? It's going to give you some number like $2 trillion. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to say, yeah, we're going to get 1% of this $2 trillion market. And like the judges who are hand selected, they will smell nonsense super quick. And then you fall into the I'm not adding credibility category for yourself. Because we know that when you start slicing away that housing market, that of that $2 trillion marker, whatever the size is, you're really only going after people that are looking in this particular part of a city that is making this particular amount of money per year that fits this particular age demographic. And then when it comes down to it, it might be a $200 million market out of that initial 2 trillion. So that's where we're saying focus small, then you can expand. You have to be very, very focused on that. And we want you, if you just take that high number, that is a top up total addressable market. We want you to go bottom up. Take the smallest piece first, and then when you can get that, then you can expand and go after bigger markets. Airbnb is a perfect case in point. Was like people thought that Airbnb, when that came out, that hotels were going to be the competitors. That turned out to be very correct at the very beginning, but that market ended up expanding way, way larger than anyone ever thought once they got going. So focus small, then expand. How are you delighting your customers? Do you have customers? What have they said? What's your Google? If they left a review on Google, if they left a testimonial on social media, what are they saying? How long have they been customers? We've been in operation for 2 years. We have 3 customers, and they've been with us since day one. So how are you delighting them? Knowing your customers and being able to showcase that all adds credibility. All right. Again, we mentioned the word execution before. We're going to talk about it again. Some things to consider here. What is your why? And entrepreneurship is a dark and lonely road. Some describe it as it's like eating broken glass. Sometimes I have felt that way. Other times I've been on top of the world, and then I have fallen over the cliff just as fast as I was on top of the world. But the thing that gets you up and gets you out of bed to tackle the problem that you're trying to solve is your why. So you need to determine what that is. And this comes into the performance aspect of this, and Gary, I'm sure will touch on it later. But when you have that emotional tug, and you have that because you're eating your own dog food, so to speak, I needed to create this or I needed to solve this problem because nobody was solving it for me, so I knew I was the only one that can do it. That's a super strong why, and you can't fake it. It's totally authentic, and it hits, and people are going to remember it. So, what is your why? And how are you going to make that why your reality? I mean, again, the authenticity of this is just something, again, it can't be faked. I mean, like, you just know that, like, come hell or high water, if I have to live in a box down by the river, underneath a bridge, I'm going to make this happen. Like, you just can't fake that stuff. And we have seen people pitch this and do very well. Because investors invest in people, they don't invest in the idea. It's betting on the jockey and not the horse. I mean, it's just when I have heard thousands of pitches, and you can just tell I will bet on that founder because I know they're going to make it happen. And there's just certain people that have it, and they're going to find a way. They may not have all the answers now, and they may not have had all the answers on their first startup, but I know that they're going to find a way. So that's what you need to keep in mind. And a validated idea is greater than just an idea. So all of this is showing about how we're going to make this real. This is the problem. We get it. This is how we're going to fix it. This is who the people are that experience this, that also need that problem solved. We have validated this because we've talked to 50 people. If so, again, if you don't have customers, how many people have you talked to? What is the story, Gary, about the guy that's making pillows? He
Oh
talked to
yeah, yeah. He wanted
500
to make
people about pillows.
Yeah, he wanted to make the best pillow, and so he went to like Bed Bath and Beyond and stood. He and somebody else on his team, they stood there, and everybody that came in the aisle to buy pillows, they asked them what they were looking for with pillows, and they just gathered data about the kinds of things people were looking for, what was important to them, and by gathering that data, then they were able to validate that their idea was something people wanted. They could, one, make the pillows so that they were things people were looking for, and also validated that people were actually looking for that. So yeah, that's the pillow story.
Yeah. So your basic needs, say you took Gary's advice, you nailed down that problem, 30 seconds, you got 20 seconds to spare. You couldn't fill it in the solution or the market. Some basic needs. That's what we need to think about in terms of like vulnerability being a strength. It's not a weakness. What are the things that you need to make that team stronger? So for maybe I am very technical, but I have high IQ, and I'm not very keen on the EQ side. I need someone that understands that. I need someone who can, from the sensing and sales standpoint, that can talk to people. Um, think about what it is that you need to offset your weakness with to make it a strength. And The thing about it is you need to share what you need with people, because the thing that I love so much about entrepreneurship is that everybody wants to help you. But if you don't share what it is that you need, then no one knows how they can help. So think about that. Hey, I'm a non-technical founder. I need someone that's really, really technical so that we can help create this code for my solution. I mean, like there, and to Gary's point earlier, you never know who knows who, and you never know who's listening. And with everybody wanting to help, all of a sudden you've got people knocking down your door saying, "Hey, I know somebody," or "I know someone that I need to introduce you to this person or that person." It happens all the time. It's really, really special to watch. Um, the secret sauce is just more bonus material for you all. If you don't have a problem, then there isn't a need. So again, you've got to start with that problem. If you don't have a solution, what you're saying is that you don't have a product or a service. If you don't have a market, then there's no way that your business is going to be able to grow. If you don't have any traction, what that is saying is that you don't have any customers. If you don't, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but if you don't have a revenue model, then there's no way that you can make money. So even though the business model is not part of your pitch, remember when I started it, when I said some of the judges will like get really excited and they want to start jumping ahead. They'll be like, "Man, I love this idea. How do you make money?" You know, you don't have to, nothing has to be clearly defined, nothing has to be set in stone, but you just need to think about, like how am I going to make money with this? Is this going to be a subscription? Is this a marketplace? Is this just going to be business to consumer, business to business, whatever the case is? If you don't have a team, it's going to be really, really hard to execute. And if there is not a performance, then there is not going to be a memory of what it is that you did. And this is the micro pitch by design. It is a very, very fast evening. We knock out 10 pitches in rapid fire succession. People have short attention spans. We have to get this thing done in 2 hours. As soon as those judges have their rubric done, we are on to the next one. So we do not waste any time. So when you have a performance, it's really, really easy to remember. And if you don't, then quite frankly, and just being super upfront, it will blend in with other pitches that are not a performance with the judges. So how do we make that performance happen? Gary is going to talk about that.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to point out is that you have, I've heard it said you have 3 seconds to make a first impression, good or bad, your choice. And so when you first get on the screen for this thing yeah, you've got 3 seconds to really make an impression. And so there's a question. Yeah, the top three are announced that night.
Yep.
For that pitch. Yes. So yeah, and the first thing is that people need to practice. And what's the old saying? How do you get to somebody's walking on the street and says, "How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And the response is practice, 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 because you're not going to play at Carnegie Hall if you haven't practiced. So, and this practice means not just practicing the words, but also practicing the delivery, practicing, get on your free Zoom thing or with your cell phone or something and record yourself, record it visually, like video record it, and then go back and watch it. And that's just
practice sharing your screen.
Yeah, do all the things, practice everything. Yeah, make a Zoom call and get a friend there, and
we will send you that virtual background. Practice getting that background set up.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be a super stressful night. The more distractions that you can eliminate allows you to just focus on confidence.
Yeah, and that's where the practicing comes in. So it's not just practicing. I think even if you're going to practice, like, are you practicing standing up or are you just going to sit? Do you have more energy when you stand up? We don't know if you're standing up or not, but we can tell if the energy's low, it's probably because you're not standing up. And so then you go, "Oh, that would be a great idea, but how do I do it?" Well, you get a standing desk or you use your laptop and you put it up on a pile of books and you stand there, and then you have the use of your hands and everything else. So practicing really, really important. And one thing that I always, when I was taking music lessons, was um, if you practice, so practice makes permanent. And a lot of people say practice makes perfect. Well, perfect practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent. So if you practice the piano scales wrong, then the habit will be to play them wrong. So practice good stuff, practice the right way, practice the right things, and they become more and more seamless habit for you. So that's important. The next thing is, as Tim said, we don't want to start with uh, for sure your name, but also a question. So sometimes people will say, how many of you have ever taken a helicopter ride? Well, nobody is going to see you can't see their hand go up. That might be a great thing to do at a presentation in front of a live audience where you're not on a digital call. But in this scenario and in this type of audience, starting with a question just wastes time. So instead, um, I'll answer that question later. So it wastes time. So instead, as Tim mentioned earlier, you might want to try a statistic. We already talked about your name. We was talking about using a statistic. Um, might want to be a short story about something. It could be, if the statistic is startling, that would be even better. This is a long one, but I remember a person, this is 20 some years ago, and she was an infectious disease specialist for a hospital system. And she said, she got up and she didn't tell anybody her name, didn't ask a question. She just said, we did a what if scenario here in the hospital system, and we determined that in this greater metropolitan area, if 3 people contracted smallpox, within 30 to 45 days, 3 million people would be dead. And nobody was paying attention to what they had for lunch or the argument they had with their office mate, nothing. It was like, oh, that's pretty spooky. So then she told us what her name was, and then she talked about the problem and their solution for it and what they would do about it. Obviously, it was more than 3 minutes, but that's an example of a story you could use. Some people use quotes. You could use a quote. You could say, so and so once said that there are no shortcuts to any place worth going. And what that person was talking about is exactly this product that we have on the market that we're getting ready to launch, and blah, 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 blah. And this is why, is because there's no shortcut to doing this thing. And we have the most robust and fastest way to get that done. And you can go on with your story. So there's an idea of things that you could do besides just use your name or ask a question. When you go through the whole thing, you'll probably write down the pitch. You'll write down what you think you're going to say, and you're going to add words and remove words and be careful that written language is different from spoken language. And this is a spoken competition. We don't want to use words that we would use if we were writing an essay. We want to use words that we would use when we actually talk to people. And then this becomes far more natural, conversational, and believable. And that's a bonus for you in this competition. And when you're doing that, you want to look through everything you've written down and not be afraid of getting rid of things that don't fit. So I had a friend that used to work for a senator, a US senator, as an assistant speechwriter. And he would always say, I would say, what's the thing you teach everybody that wants to be a speechwriter? What are the things you would say to those people? And he would say, in that business, as a writer like that, you have to be willing to kill your darlings. And that means that you write things that you think are just great. And they're your darlings and they're your created babies. And he would always say, you've got to be willing to kill them if they're not feeding the story. If they're not helping you, you got to get rid of them. And so that's tough sometimes. And because as you write your pitch, as you write it out, you're going to come up with brilliant things in your own mind. And you've got to be willing to say, you know what? That's not helping. Let me remove that. Let me put something else different in there. So that's the idea of being willing to delete anything that doesn't feed your story. You got to be willing to do that. We just talk about it being a story, and it's a story and a performance. So the story piece is what you tell, and the performance is what you look like while you're doing it, what you sound like while you're doing it. And even though you're going to be in a little window, you'll be pinned and your slides will be there, and the judges and other people can see you. And how confident do you look doing this? How sure of yourself do you look? Is your story believable? And this is really more important, does what you're saying match what you look like? When you say something like, if I said, this is very important for you to remember, but I don't look or sound like it's very important, then you're not going to interpret it as being important. So be sure that you look like what you're saying. If you're making emphasis on things, if you're using some sort of superlative example, if whatever, you need to deliver it verbally and visually so that it appears to be a superlative. Okay.
And part of your performance, Gary, is your slides.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah, what
by
do they look
design, these slides, like you can see, they're no more than 6 words.
You have a
per
6x6 rule I like to use, and that's not more than 6 words on a line and not more than 6 lines on a slide. And less than that is better. Graphs are awesome because the picture says 1,000 words. And if you can demonstrate statistically whatever the item is that you're trying to get, the point you're trying to get across, if you can do that statistically with a graph, a bar graph, a pie graph, some way visually to see it where I don't have to really look like a spreadsheet would be terrible. But sometimes the chart is always better. The graph is always better. Carol's asking if slides are required. They're not. If they can help you tell your story and see something that you're trying to describe in too many words, then you can use them. 2 slides for slide's sake, not necessarily helpful. But the slides, the creation of the slides and how they're laid out, what they look like, that's stuff that we can help you with as you start to develop the thing. And Tim and I are happy to look at your stuff for you and give you some feedback and say, hey, you might want to cut down from the 50 slides you have here. You only got 3 minutes, and that's like 5 seconds a slide, so probably not going to work. But Gary, they're all important slides. That may be true, but
kill your darlings.
kill your darlings. I had a friend one time, it was a client, called me and said, I have to testify on Capitol Hill, and I have a slide deck, and I'm terrified, and blah 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 blah. And she had like 35 slides. And I said, okay, how much time do you have? She goes, I got like 10 minutes. I said, maybe 15. I said, okay, then you can have 5 slides. So figure out which 5 are the most important to you, but you cannot have 30 slides. It's not going to work. So yeah, I had to kill her darlings. Go back, and I think at first I gave her 10. I said, you can have 10 slides. And then I said, oh, newsflash, you can only have 5. So pick the 5 best out of those 10 that tell the story the best. So, and remember, you don't need like some people waste the slide with their, like they spend a lot of time on it, and they don't need to do that. Like a title slide. No, you're telling us what it is. All right, now let's get into the details. I'd rather you spent more time with some graphs and show us trends and marketing trends and pictures. This is important. Pictures of the people on your team. When you tell us you have this team of 6 gurus that are in this space, one's a medical expert, one's a financial expert, one's a something else, and you show us their picture and their name, and we go, oh, these are real people. This isn't vaporware. This isn't, I
And
dreamed it up.
your audience and the judges read faster than you can speak. So you don't have to give and read the entire bio for each of your team members.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they can see what it is. They see the people. They go, oh, okay, I get it. And so, yeah, the slides are, I would say, use them if they're beneficial to you. And certain slides are beneficial, certain slides are not beneficial. And Tim and I are not shy about telling you that these are some darlings you need to kill because they're not going to help you. They're just going to bog down the 3 minutes. So,
and we've
yeah.
seen, Gary and I have been doing this a long time. Throughout every year, we see 40 pitches. And then if you include the championship pitch, that brings it to 52 pitches that we see a year.
Yeah.
And we've seen it all. We've seen people going through their slides while pitching, but their slides were not shared. I mean, here they are, and on this slide, they're referencing the slide, but no one sees the slide. They only see the person talking. I mean, it's like, and we can't say anything. I mean, we're just, as MCs, we just have to let it go. And we can't give people unfair advantages. So the practice, the performance, I would much rather, at the end of the day, I would much rather you spend 90% of your time on what you're going to say and 10% on your slides versus 90% on your slides and then you just butcher the soundtrack.
Yeah. Agree. Agree. Yeah. And so this goes back to the deleting things that are irrelevant. Everything that you say, everything you put on the slide, everything you say verbally, is it enhancing the story? Is it helping your thing? Again, if it's not, kill it. And if it detracts from the story, then it goes back to what I said at the beginning, that if it's detracting from the story, then the judge, because they're just human and they're trying to figure out how that fits. Because if I started talking about hamburger buns right now, you all would be trying to figure out why I'm talking about hamburger buns when we're talking about a pitch competition and trying to make sense of it, because humans try to do that. My cat or my dog don't care, but human beings actually care. And so anything that doesn't fit into the story and the performance is a distraction. And we want to get rid of those things. And you can go back and watch all the pitch contests for the past couple of years, and you see who won, and you look at what their performance was, and then you can see why they probably won, especially the finals. That's a really great place to look. In the micro ones, you'll see people that have a good idea, but they don't tell it very well, or they didn't have a good idea and they told it really well, and the judges saw through that. So I would, if part of this preparation, I would go back onto where are those, Tim? Are those on the Start Peninsula webpage?
They are on the webpage and also on the Start Peninsula YouTube channel.
Yeah. So go and look at those and go, oh, I see why this person did well. And you'll see who the winners were. You don't know who 4 through 10 is, but you know who the first 3 are. And you can say, oh, and usually the first place one, it's pretty much a gimme. When you see their performance, you can tell why they won. And look at them and see if do they answer the rubric questions? Do they answer the things that Tim has just laid out earlier in this, how to do the pitch? Do they check those boxes? And how well do they do it? And then listen, because Tim is a timer and I introduce you, listen to how I introduce the people. And I just say, I'm pretty nice about, hey, Carol, are you ready to go now? And Carol says, yeah, I'm ready. And I go, okay, as soon as you start talking, Tim's going to set the thing for 3 minutes, climb the timer for 3 minutes. And I say, the floor is yours. And you would go, but listen to how that happens. And then listen at the end of the 3 minutes, because the people that are midway through their solution or their market or what target market, and Tim says, and that's time. And you go, ooh, would they spend too much time on? They spent too much time on something earlier, and then you'll see none of the ones, all the ones that win or in the top three or are in the top three of the finals, they all have their timing down to they finish, and then Tim says, and that's time. And so look at that kind of stuff. The people that did this earlier didn't have that benefit because they couldn't watch the videos of the performances from the past. And there are some pretty funny ones. Are the ones up there still from when they were live or not?
They might be on YouTube,
Yeah,
but
there's some
I don't
really
but I don't
crazy
know.
stuff that happens. There's some disasters that happen, and they're even on the online ones, they're disasters. And look at those, because when you look at them, you're going to go, yeah, I don't want to be that person. Like, that's really sad. And you don't want to be that person. So, um, yeah. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for everybody. These are just tricks we've learned. And again, use your cell phone and record yourself and then look at it. Some people will record it and go, "Oh, I recorded it." And I'll say, "Well, did you look at it?" No, it's too terrifying to look at it. Well, here's the news flash. The first time you do it, no one else was watching except for a spider and the cat. So, and no one's going to watch you review it. But if you don't know what people see when you do it, then you're just hurting yourself. And I'd say look at it 5 times. And then once you've looked at it about 5 times, then say, what would I say to this person if I was coaching this person for this competition? What would I tell them to do or not do so they could be even better? What would I tell them? Because then you're past all the vanity of what do I look like? What do I sound like? All that kind of stuff. You get way past that. And so it's important to video record and look at it with, you just use your phone, make a Zoom thing, practice sharing the screen, as Tim said. Um, just do all of that. See yourself on the screen. What do you look like when you share your screen and you're little in the box? That's what you're going to look like. Try it standing up. Try it sitting down. Do all these different things and get the lighting right so that you're lit in the front and we can see you and you don't have any distractions. You're going to get a backdrop for you, a virtual background, but um, and there's another question. We will also do let me do some questions here. So, is the pitch only virtually to start? All the pitches are virtually. So the micro pitch and even the finals, everything's online. There's no in-person pitch. Are slides required? I answered that for Carol. Is the time that you are getting ready to share your slides count or just at the time when you start talking? So, and we'll do a test when everybody gets on a half an hour in a practice room. We all get on together at 5:30 and we'll say, "Oh, Stephanie, you want to go ahead and share your screen?" And Stephanie will share her screen. And then we'll say, "Okay, Carol, you want to share your screen?" And Carol will share her screen. And we'll have you test your mic and we'll do all that kind of stuff. We'll send you, I think we usually send you your background a few days before.
Yep.
And right when you get the email, figure out how to add it to your virtual backgrounds on Zoom. And if you don't know, ask me or Tim how to help you do that. Because we don't want you to waste your prep time during the get ready time, when you should be focusing on all the good mojo you're going to be passing on to people in the audience. You don't need to be worried about the other stuff. Figure out what you're going to wear days before. Some people wear things that emphasize what their product is. Like some people they make jewelry and they might wear jewelry that emphasizes this is my work that I do, or they might do clothing things or whatever. So, check out what you're going to wear and all that stuff days beforehand, so that the night that the pitch happens, you don't have to worry about anything except, and worry doesn't solve anything anyway. So you're just ready. I like to, a lot of people will say good luck, and people that are ready, they don't need luck. So I usually say best wishes, because when you're ready, you're ready. And you put the work in ahead of time, and you're ready. And okay, it's just one more opportunity that I get to share my story. So, okay. So, yeah, hope that helps everybody.
Yeah, one thing to add to that with all of this is we had mentioned the 2 minute question and answer period. And with that 2 minute question and answer period, we have seen people talk themselves into the top three, and we've seen people talk themselves out of the top three. So we'll touch on that Q&A aspect really quickly.
And the way that works, so we'll say Tim is the pitcher, and I'll say, okay, Tim, it's time for Q&A. We're going to have each judge ask you one question. Please don't answer. Do you have something to write down the questions with? When the last judge is finished asking the questions, they're all three have put their questions to you. Then when you're ready, you can start answering them. And then when that happens, Tim will put 2 minutes on the clock. And so that's how that works.
And the reason we do that is because we want to teach you to be succinct with your answers. Otherwise, the Q&A aspect would go on and on and on and on and on. But really, we have found that for the most part, most people do very well in the Q&A because you already know the material. The authentic and passionate you comes out, and that's where a lot of people benefit from. They're not so stiff, and they're not so nervous. I mean, they're nervous because it's the Q&A aspect, but they do very well. And one of the things that Gary always mentions is think about the questions that scare the death out of you and prepare to answer those questions. The other aspect would be we don't know if you hit everything in your pitch or not. Without you, this is a time where if you know that you forgot something, you don't have to say, "Oh, and I forgot to tell you about this about my pitch." This is where you during the Q&A, you can weave stuff back in to answer questions that or provide additional context into things that you may have left off.
Yeah, some people finish the Q&A and they have a minute left and they sit there and don't say anything. And I can't say to them, well, is there anything else you'd like to share with the judges? Well, I can't do that because that's not fair to everybody else. And so think about that now, that is there something that doesn't fit in my pitch that I could add if I had 15 extra seconds in the Q&A? Let me do that. And then you can also be, as Tim says, weave it in. So somebody might say, well, Tim, this idea that you have, you say that you need XYZ resources, and how would you get those? And so Tim answers that, and he's done in with all the questions, and he's got 30 seconds left over. So maybe in the last question, in the answer, he might say, and something else that's really important to remember is that the way that I am planning to work to make this thing work is that I'm going to be counting on these resources to help me promote this and blah, 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 blah. And I already have 300 hours of free television commercial time lined up. And that wasn't in the pitch, right? So he's added that this is a piece that might be helpful to know that I'm really in it. And I want to share one more thing. So I'm working with some clients of mine on some company management things. But one of the things that we check with everybody is we do a GWC test. And that is, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? And I think that when you do your pitch, the judges need to see that. Do you get what the problem is? Do you want to solve this problem? And do you have the capacity to solve it? And if you can pass the GWC test, that's a pretty good shot on the pitch that you're going to have the right information in it. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, I
That,
mean it all boils down to execution. If you have those three things, then
yeah,
you're most likely
to be
able to
successful.
execute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But
Look,
as
I'm
Gary said, that's how
questions.
you get in touch with us.
Yep.
Reach out to us, leverage us. Our request is don't send us something 2 hours before the competition and ask for feedback. We're extremely busy and we're happy to provide feedback. We're happy to read documents. We're happy to listen to pitches. We're happy to watch pitches. We'll provide that feedback. Um, but just be respectful of our time. But we've helped a lot of people. We've seen some really amazing transformations take place. Um, I'm confident, and you all have fun with this. Really, really have fun with this. It's super counterintuitive, but the people that are having fun, as opposed to people operating out of fear, you can sense that stuff. And nothing will make someone run away faster than someone who's just showing so much fear.
And I think another emotion we don't want to see is desperation.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that's what I mean
You know,
by
if I
that
don't
fear
win
as
this
well.
pitch competition, my children will not eat for 5 years. It's like, uh, okay, well then get a job somewhere else because this might not be for you. I mean, I know people that have, and I know Tim does as well, who Tim used to have a sign when we worked in the same office, and it said, "The dream is free, the hustle costs extra." And and he's right. If you're going to get into this space, this is pretty spooky. And we both know people that have slept in the back seat of their car, wondering if they were going to make payroll the next day because they were that far down. And they persevered and they made it. But it's a spooky road. So desperation, is not something that the judges want to smell. I think they would go, I don't know, a person seems too desperate. More of a, as Tim says, like a joy-filled experience, that I'm really excited about telling you about my cool idea that solves this known problem. And I'm even going back to the luthier thing. Like, I live in the mountains of North Carolina, where bluegrass is a staple, and everybody plays fiddle or bass or mandolin or guitar or banjo. And a luthier, a stringed instrument repair person, is a hot commodity here, especially because where I live is a half an hour from any other population. And so if you're on the mountain here and you're a luthier, you're in business. And you've got a big clientele here if people just know about you. So it's if you were pitching luthier, being a luthier here, then we want to see happy luthiers, right? There's more work than one person could possibly do. So we want you to be happy about this idea, this thing that you're solving. And so even if you're a luthier or a buggy whip maker, either one. Any questions? I know Carol has a question. She's dying to ask something, or she's dying to do her pitch.
Will we know who's pitching first or what the presentation schedule will look like?
Yes. And so because we are sold out, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Um, because we're sold out, we
You
do
can
have that
draw it.
order. It goes in reverse order. Whoever secured their pitch ticket, so to speak, first will pitch last. Uh, who asked the question?
I think Edward did.
Yes, sir. That was me.
Okay, I just assumed it was Zach. Where are you, Edward? Da, 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 da. You're pitching third.
Perfect.
But we'll
Thank
make
you.
sure we get all that information out. You'll have your own special panelist link. We'll get you your virtual background. We'll give you the pitch order. We'll give you all that information. Probably it's 2 weeks from tonight, so probably in a week we'll start working on that. Once the judges are finalized, that will be released as well. I recommend going to LinkedIn, check out the judges, see what what their background is, what they're interested in. We're very intentional who we pick as judges because this is the first step of the journey. We're here to validate your business idea. So if an incubator is next, or a startup studios is next, or an accelerator is next, or raising money is next, we invite all those people to be judges. So that way they already know who you are, they've seen you, they've heard you, and it's already a warm intro when it comes to reaching out to them. So we're super intentional. Anyone else want to know where they are in terms of pitch order?
Follow-up question. Hi, I'm not Zach Miller, Michael King actually, but that goes to show. But I'm representing the Chakra Network. I just want to know our order, and I'm assuming you said 2 weeks from now, so that's the 26th, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
Michael, you're pitching sixth.
Perfect.
Carol, you're pitching fourth.
Would you happen to know for Frank King?
Frank.
Frank, eighth.
Can you tell me mine, Tim?
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Stephanie
Russell. There was two Stephanies on here.
Stephanie Russell.
Stephanie Russell's going to kick everything off.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Go,
But
Stephanie.
the thing
Go
is,
big or go home, right?
typically, yeah. So honestly, I feel like either first and last are like the two prime spots, because you always you remember the first, and then the last one is fresh on everyone's memory.
And
And
Jackie's
then
asking as well.
and we take an intermission after the fifth person. We take a short break, so there's actually two firsts and two lasts. But
And
So
so
second
Tim,
person.
this is Phil Zettel. Can you tell me where I'm at on that list?
can you just read the list, Tim?
Yeah.
Stephanie is first. Stephanie Russell is first. Jaqueline is two. Edward is three. Carol is four. Billy J is five. Michael King is six. Matthew is seven. Frank King is eight. Katie Van Winkle is nine. And Marv Arner is 10.
And Elizabeth is on the wait list. Is that right? I think that's
Well,
what
I just messaged about this. I only applied a couple of days ago, so it was
Yep.
either waitlist on the 26th or on May 10th.
Yes. So we have you, Yep, we have you as the first alternate, and then we have you tagged as making sure that you're.
And do prepare for the 26th, because it has happened in the last year even that a couple times somebody just didn't show up. And then suddenly at 5:30 or quarter of 6, you're on. The alternate is on.
Yeah. So if pitcher four doesn't show, then we'll be like, all right, Elizabeth, you're up, and pitcher four. So we
Wow.
just because we have to make it fair in the sense that, like, otherwise everyone will like show up late. They're like, I don't want to go first. I'm going to show up late so that I can go 10th. You know, I mean, so it's just
But
we've
your kids have
seen-
to eat. The kids have to eat. So you have to go. You have to go.
So Tim, can I be the second backup?
Who is that?
Phil Zettel.
Yep.
You being serious?
I think we've had 2 no-shows before.
We have
Yeah.
Phil,
If not, it'll be
have you submitted an application?
yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll,
I can
I'll,
maybe I didn't do it right.
I'll make sure to follow up with you to make sure.
And
Or you
sorry if I
apply-
missed this, but I was just gonna ask how often you all do these kind of pitch platforms. Like right now it's the March 26th and May 10th is what I heard, but how often does it happen? And again, I'm sorry I came a little bit late today.
No, you're fine. So we do 4 micro pitches a year. And we
we don't do them in the dead of the summer because everybody's away. So they pick up in September again.
so
I think
we
it's
do
September and October.
March 26th is Pitch Perfect 1. Pitch Perfect 2 is May 14th. Pitch Perfect 3, or I'm sorry, Micro Pitch 3 is September 17th. Micro Pitch 4 is October 8th. And we take the top 3 people from each of those 4 micro pitches. They advance to the championship pitch event, which will be November 5th. And then you have the top 12 of Hampton Roads all competing on November 5th. And then the top 3 people will get 5,000. 4 through 12 will get 500. If you advance, if you advance to the micro or to the championship pitch, that does, and you place 1 through 3, that doesn't mean you get 5,000 plus 500. It means if you're 1 through 3, you get 5,000. 4 through 12 is 500. So it's not 500 and it just, you advance for the chance to get 5,000.
And I think that if, let's say you came 4th at this one on the 26th and you wanted to apply and there was room on May 10, you can apply to pitch there again.
Yep.
So you can, and then if you come, if you don't make the top 3 in the May, you can, if it's not full in September, you can
Try again in September.
sign up to pitch again. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had people do exactly that. We've had people not win last year and then come back and win this year. I mean, it's just I typically start out all of these events by saying you get out of it what you put into it. And the only people that really lose are the people that get ticked off, storm out, and then they never come back, and it's really, really unfortunate because everybody wants to see you succeed. Everybody wants to see you win. But some people are like, they just don't want to own it. They don't want to learn from it. They're not coachable, and it wasn't their fault. It was the judge's fault, unfortunately.
Well, I'm really angry because I've never won. Oh, I've never pitched. Oh, maybe it's a misplaced anger. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Side question.
Yes.
I know you mentioned before that you and Gary met in the office. How did you guys first meet? Just out of curiosity.
It was a bizarre accident.
I started a business incubator in Greater Williamsburg for City of Williamsburg, James City County, and York County. We did a lot of programming and entrepreneurial events. And I think there ended up being, we got some newspaper coverage, and we were looking for people that wanted to help facilitate a coffee meetup for entrepreneurs called 1 Million Cups. And Gary, you saw that.
It was like in November, like fall of 2015, 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yep.
so
I used to live in Northern Virginia, but I had moved to Williamsburg in 14 and was in the winter of 14 and was looking for stuff to do. And I saw that article and I went to the launch pad and where it was what the incubator was called. And I met Tim. And then we got to talking about stuff. And then I started teaching at William and Mary and then at the business school. And then Tim and I got to be even closer friends. And then when this thing happened, he was like, oh, would you help with this thing? And so we've just been rolling since that first meeting in 2015. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And we've helped people raise a lot of money, millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I moved during the pandemic and I live in Boone, North Carolina, which is one of the cities you might hear of from the hurricane and the flood,
Yeah.
Asheville and Boone. And I'm fine, but bad things happened here, and we're kind of getting back together. But yeah, so I live at 3,800 feet on the side of a mountain, and since this all went virtual during the pandemic, then it used to be all live. We would go to some place, and it was at Hampton University one year, and it was at something else another year, and it was at some big place. It would move around, and we just made it work. It's better online because more can participate.
Yeah.
And
There's no
it's
traffic.
yeah,
We're the money we save on venues and food and everything else, we're able to give that as prize money to the pitchers. Yeah. We know that 5,000 isn't going to be, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what you're really going to need, but
yeah.
it's validation, and it's enough to be like, hey, I got enough to get my business license and do some things to get your business going. Like we had a, Gary, were you part of Start with Instant Teams? It was
No,
Instant Teams was a
it
company
started
that
a couple
pitched.
years. It started a couple years before me.
Well, the Instant Teams is a company that pitched several years ago, and I remember they got the prize money. Um, they became part of the Launchpad, the incubator that I managed, and I remember they used that money for like business cards and like letterhead or something like that. Fast forward to today, they've raised like the last round they raised 13 million and they have like 650 employees now. I mean, it's just like so it's pretty it's some of the success stories that we've had have been pretty it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably there's stuff we don't even know that happened. There's stuff that people, they just got a leg up or because they got some experience and they had the comfort and the courage
We've
and
had
the
a deal
self-confidence
on
to
Shark Tank with Mark Cuban.
yeah.
Um, yeah, we've had some successes.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep. So does that answer your question about how Tim and I got connected?
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
get us on this bandwagon. We'll go all night. And
Well,
we
we
know
will.
Stephanie.
Yes, I have a question. I've been in business for a while, so I know a lot of this you were talking about that, you have an idea. How are you going to get customers? I already have customers. I already have my own website. So I don't know, how you want me to pitch that I'm already established, meaning that I'm not brand new. And so how would I talk about that? I mean, I know what my problem is, and I've been using the solution for years, and been very successful at it. But, I am looking to expand, and that's the reason why I'm here. So I just need some direction to make sure. I went ahead and did all my slides this weekend and just finished them up today. Um, and then, of course, now I'm going to have to change some things now that you told me about what it actually needs to be. But just want to make sure that I'm on the right page and the right path in order to go down this.
Yeah, I
this
mean,
path.
markets change, companies pivot. It takes a long time. I mean, so I just listened to a podcast today with Vlad, the founder of Robinhood. They've been around for 12, 13 years, 14 years, and they consider themselves a startup still to this day. It's just, and they're a publicly traded company. So it's just, we understand from a application standpoint that everyone's been at different stages. Um, but you pivot, you learn new things, markets change, you identify new problems that need to be solved, or you find out a better solution to solve those problems. So that would be a way to talk about that, or and then you can validate that through the experience or through the years of experience that you have in doing that.
Okay.
I mean, I put in the chat, Stephanie, if you have your slides ready, and Tim and Gary said they're willing to give
I'm nervous.
we're ready
Look at that. We didn't even, Elizabeth is on it.
I'm here for it. I'm like, let's. I'm also kind of curious, like who is in the proverbial room. Like, I am curious. I know we're going to hear it at the pitch night, but I feel like we're a cohort. Like, okay, is
Well,
everybody?
that really is where the magic happens when I mean, so like you all need to leverage one another and learn from one another and support one another. And that is the one aspect of when we were in person that I do miss because it was fun to watch the cohorts. I mean, it was really pretty life-changing from that standpoint.
Will we get everybody's information after we're done? Like to share?
That's interesting. Honestly, no one has ever asked that before. Like we never like had like a formal here's your class list kind of thing. I mean, I'm certainly not opposed to anything. Like if people are willing to share that stuff, yeah, that certainly happy to do so.
Yeah, I popped my information in the chat. If anybody
Yep.
is interested, I can put us all in an email together. Um, and I just, maybe I'll also introduce myself. I'm Liz Kiriakou, and I just wanted to say thanks for this. I'm not someone who has had an established business. I actually just got laid off from the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. It's been all over the news. I'm sure y'all have heard. It's been awful, honestly. And I've been doing a lot of protesting and like breaking things down and, you know, F the man. But I feel like finding this pitch platform has been allowing me to kind of build something up and think about possibilities and kind of like build community in Virginia Beach a little bit more. And so I'm really excited about this. And, even if it ends here in the pitch, I'm just like really excited about this opportunity and thankful for this platform. So thanks to Tim and Gary and the group. So
For
thank you.
sure. And I will say that, if there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening right now, but I really see that this area it is going to spawn a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. And at the end of the day, uh, the government is not very fast, lean, or nimble, and entrepreneurs and founders can come up with, I'm sure that anyone that, and I have worked for the government as well, come up with a bazillion ideas of how things can be done better. So these are all problems that can be solved. So I expect there to be a boost in entrepreneurial spirit and activities as things evolve.
Yeah, as unfortunate as getting laid off and everything is, sometimes that's the catalyst that, I mean, I started my business in 1998 and I left, in 1997 in December, I left a pretty high paying corporate IT job and I was miserable. And the cat was a catalyst for me to leave that. I just cold turkey quit. I gave him 2 weeks notice and walked out. And and I just started this business and it took a year or so to get it functional and for me to figure out what I wanted to do and pivoting around a lot. But then I've been doing it since January of 98 and it's been the best thing I ever did. And I thought that the corporate world, and I used to work for the government as well. And I'm like, I was just, I left that because I had golden handcuffs. I made too much money to go anywhere else with the skills I had. So going off on my own was not something that I would ever have had the courage to do, I thought, until you finally hurt bad enough and you go, you know what? If I don't make this change and take advantage of the opportunity, I'm never going to know. And so, yeah, I mean, as much as it sucks, sometimes it's the catalyst that you need to say, let's just go,
Yeah.
and what do you have to lose, It's you're already down. You're already down for 10 pegs. So, okay.
Well, yeah, because I will say that one of the things that I see with founders and some of their downfall is that they're afraid to burn the ship, and they got one foot on the dock and one foot on the ship, and they're not committing to anything. And it's like once you burn the ship, you got to figure it out. And so, unfortunate reality for you is that they burned your ship, and so now you gotta like it's go time. So we're here to help you out.